We take you live to our reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who is getting some reaction on the ground. Mbalenhle, very good evening to you. What are you hearing on the ground? I understand you're with the mayor. Mbalenhle, a very good evening to you. Can you hear me, Mbalenhle? I understand that as we garner some reaction, you are with the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. What does he have to say?
Well, certainly it has been a long week since Election Day on Wednesday, and today really marks the end of that long experience that, which took a couple of days and it involved vote counting as well as vote capturing. I'm joined by two very important individuals here, one of whom is the Johannesburg Mayor, Kabelo Gwamanda. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Now, in your view and in your thoughts, would you say that, the elections went on well in the city of Johannesburg? And what is your view of the outcome of this election altogether?
Thank you very much, Mbali. Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers at home. So the first point of departure is the fact that the city of Johannesburg is extremely proud of having hosted the Results Operating Center. Hosted it with prestige, hosted it with pride, demonstrating our ability as the city of Johannesburg. Secondly, to in fact extend our gratitude to the residents in the city of Johannesburg for having come out in their numbers, regardless of the conditions in which their voting stations were in, the environment in which they needed to vote under, but most importantly, demonstrating the fact that we appreciate this right to exercise in terms of defining the government that we want, in terms of championing the future for this particular country. So overall, I am happy about the city of Johannesburg's participation in the overall elections as well as the overall results operating center.
Certainly. I think the city of Johannesburg has really put its foot forward, and its best foot forward for that matter, in ensuring that this happens seamlessly, and we're seeing the results and the celebrations which have certainly started. Just to speak to your experience, and your political party, which has also showed quite a good showing in the upcoming elections. Do you perhaps believe that, this has anything to do with your position in the city of Johannesburg?
Look, I think for my political party in particular, there's a margin of growth. We still have a lot of work to do. I think we, in the main, wanted to demonstrate the fact that you can separate the political party from the state. You don't need state authority, you don't need to use state resources, you don't need to exploit the state in order to make your political party appear beautiful and make your political party come out as the best there is. But to exercise that separation of power, firstly, and to hold both offices with integrity, separate from each other, of which we have tried by all means to ensure that we do to the best of our ability, but most importantly, combating and minimizing the element of corruption that will always be associated with holding two positions in the political party as well as the state. But the political party has grown, not in the manner in which we would have wanted it to, but we are happy about the fact that South Africans know that Al Jamaa is a party that is capable of governing, and it has demonstrated it through experience.
And now moving to the coalition that exists in the city of Johannesburg. Yesterday we had a conversation with one of your MMCs, and he expressed confidence in your leadership. However, I cannot let you go without asking about the rumors pertaining to your future as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, potentially after the outcome of these elections, and with those calling for a reopening of those negotiations and coalition partners going back to the negotiation table. Are you at all concerned at the moment, or What's your feeling?
Look, by its very nature, politics are a contestation of power. But for the city of Johannesburg in particular, the current coalition partners prioritize the stability of the city. The city has been stable for the past year and a half, year and a couple of months. And for me, as a councillor in the city of Johannesburg, mine is to contribute towards the development and to safeguard the integrity and the position of the city of Johannesburg. It's not an issue of us always debating over positions, but it's the collective responsibility that we have of upholding the city and ensuring that there's continued service delivery and there's a continuation. If the political party feels that I need to maintain the position in the city of Johannesburg as executive mayor, I will gladly accept. But if the coalition partners get together and they decide on a different position, we have agreed as political parties to adhere to a collective decision. The view of the collective will always prevail over any councillor's ambition, whether be it in local government, provincial government or national government. So we will then engage and determine how the future of the city will look.
You've mentioned the provincial government. I mean, we've seen a clear picture there, no outright majority, and you've been in a relationship with the ANC. Are you willing to continue that relationship at provincial level?
So as a political party, ours is ideological in the main. We associate with like-minded political parties. It doesn't have to be a specific party, but the primary objective is to ensure that the collective, or rather the majority of the population of the land is taken care of, and to ensure that we do not do it at the expense of others, but we create an environment conducive for all of us to strive equally, of which is what our democracy enabled us to be able to achieve. So working with the ANC, working with Mkontowesis, we're working with the economic freedom fighters, working with the Patriotic Alliance, who I've mentioned all of them, and we have a good relationship at this point. And moving forward, I don't see a reason why there has to be any conflict in that particular unity.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I am now joined by a political scientist who's going to give us a breakdown of the results in their entirety. He is a UNISA professor of science, a political scientist. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us and for your patience. This is not the first time we're speaking, and I remember the last time we spoke, the comment that you made was that should the country have a coalition government at national level, that would mean that we, South Africa, would be ushering in a weak government. We've seen the instability at local government level and the difference of opinions and ideologies in terms of, foreign policy and so on. How does this play out? Are we seeing a weaker government going into the National Assembly right now?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Mbali. Perhaps we should be patient. We still have the government from 2019 up to now, and it might sound a bit premature to say we have a weak government because we now have a coalition. But we need to wait for that government to be installed, and then once it's installed, then we obviously look at the permutations. But at that time, remember, we were staring coalitions into the face. All these public opinion polls were saying definitely South Africa is going to have a coalition government. And we know that if you don't have a government that has an outright majority in politics and in political science, almost inevitably that government is going to be weak because it has to depend on window shopping, going around asking for some support from other parties to be able to form government. We have seen it happening internationally in countries like Italy and so on, and even Spain, and in parts of Europe. So to that extent, we know that this is how they normally fare. Will we have a weak government? It will be premature at this stage. So we need to wait until that government is installed. But already we have a mirror image from the metros, from Nelson Mandela Bay, from Johannesburg where we are, from Tshwane where I stay, and of course in Ekurhuleni. And we know roughly what to expect. And it can be quite disorderly, it can be quite chaotic, and my fear is that at its worst, it might lead to some kind of paralysis of policy and laws, whereby instead of unanimously agreeing as parties that yes, we are implementing this law, let's say maybe on immigration or on foreign policy or on NHI or any other law for that matter, they are going to start heckling each other, they are going to start disagreeing, and in the end, time is going to be overextended, and thereby laws going into abeyance until the next parliament. We have seen the disadvantages of delaying, of having too many deliberations in parliament on laws by parliamentarians, which delays time for presidential assent, for the president to sign these laws. In the space of about a month and a half, we had about how many acts? I'm sure about 5, 6, I stand under correction, but we can check that it looks like they were all put to be signed in the pre-election period. So that is one of the things, the delay in the laws. Again, some other people are also worried about the unanimity of parliament. I'm not so sure. I can bet my bottom rand that I don't think we will see them sleeping in parliament, any parliamentarians sleeping in parliament as they used to be in the olden days. But certainly we are quite likely to see a very vibrant parliament there, because there will be heavy, discussions and so on.
Robust discussions, certainly. And I hear what you're saying. You're saying that we could see a delay in terms of the passing of laws, and there's also a whole thing that we've seen in municipalities where some of the decisions not to support a certain stance or a certain budget comes from a political position and not a party. Not a people position where you want to serve the people. So we could see party politics playing an even bigger role in parliament, where ideological differences, in spite of people being together, working together in coalitions, meaning that they can't really see eye to eye and therefore will not vote together on certain decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm already hearing memos of some parties saying we want the minister of this, we want the minister of that position. Unless we get that position, we are not going to go into coalition with you. It tells you that the ideological issues, the party political positions are already being lined up. And for me, that can throw a spanner into the works. It can delay policy making, decision making, and even in government. In terms of the public service, those public servants that are supposed to be implementing policy will be delayed by the heckling as well as the pussyfooting, the delays, unnecessary delays at the legislature, provincial or the national level.
Do you foresee a repeat of what we saw in Ekurhuleni, where councillors came to blows when they couldn't find each other? Could we see that happening?
We don't want to see any of those. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of many South Africans. Many of my compatriots, countrymen, don't like to see that kind of situation. They don't want to see parliamentarians fighting, throwing chairs, blows in parliament, as we have seen in previous occasions. So I'm not expecting it, but I'll tell you, it is possible. Because when you have a coalition and parliamentarians, public representatives failing to agree, therein lies the recipe for throwing blows and ultimately throwing chairs at each other and, heaven knows what.
Umkhonto Wesizwe, the new kid on the block, really surprising many, taking from the IFP, taking from the ANC, taking from the EFF, and then taking on the third position nationally. Was this a surprise? Did it come as a surprise at all?
Definitely came as a surprise. Remember, you and I and other people who are watching this space, from the 16th of December, we heard that the new party was being formed. And it wasn't making any headlines up until, the leader of MK, Mr. Jacob Zuma, said, I'm not going to vote for the ANC. And the media people were saying, which party are you going to vote for now? And then ultimately it turned out that he's voting for this. And then we started seeing the numbers rising. And of course, it caught many of us by surprise. And as a new party, they were gunning for 2/3 majority. and they need to be commended for obviously their organizational skills to be able to get this number of seats that they have. I know they are contesting many of them, but it is very unusual for new parties to suddenly get such a high number of seats, and then suddenly maybe even come to being close to the second or the third largest party nationally. We have seen that happening with the EFF, but this feat of MK has superseded that. To that extent, they need to be commended. But of course, it is a party that we may call a surprise package, relatively unknown. We are still studying that party. We are looking at it very, very carefully, like anyone else, because it wasn't there in 2019. And suddenly it is there. It started last year. Hardly 6 to 9 months is there, and it is becoming a serious political force to reckon with. And to that extent, it warrants to be studied very carefully. Is it a small party? I'm not so sure. I'm conflicted whether to say. I used to think that it's a small party, but when it started amassing all this number of seats, I'm not so sure whether to call it a small party or a big party. It's somewhere in between. It's a very difficult, a different type of small party if it is a small party.
Now, some have said that this is the beginning of the end for the ANC and that we could see it declining even further in upcoming elections. What are your views and your thoughts on this?
I would hate to be the one reading the death script for the ANC to say it's the beginning of the end. But as we keep studying declining voter turnout and declining voter support, party support even, for the governing party, starting from 1994, we can actually see that there's this trajectory that if, as the economists say, all things remaining the same, this party is going to continue losing support, hemorrhaging support. Unfortunately, it looks like the party is definitely going to be in a serious trouble. I wouldn't say it's going to disappear, because on the one hand, it's a 110-year-old party. So are we staring at this huge party that has this huge legacy, its demise, starting from 2024 May? I'm not so sure whether the writing is on the wall, but clearly the signs are there, or the warning signs are there, that if it does not do serious self-introspection, if it does not look at the things that many of these traditional supporters have raised, and hence they have chosen to vote for other parties, including the MK, it might be in serious trouble come 2026 in the next local government election, not even in 2029 when we will be looking at another national election, but less than 2.5 years from now. They need to act and work quickly to be able to identify those issues that the voters are flagging in order to be able to salvage the situation if this is what they want to do.
Thank you so much. There you have it. That is UNISA political scientist giving us his views and his thoughts on the outcome of these elections. Celebrations do continue at the gala dinner happening right on my right, your left. For now, it is back to you in studio.
Very well, Mbalenhle Mthethwa. Thank you so much for that very thorough breakdown. Of course, getting reaction to the latest tally of the results of the elections announced a short while ago by the IEC.